Hey girls and gals, welcome back to my channel. My name is Taylor and today's video is going to be my January 2022 TBR. Now in terms of TBRs, this is going to be a very unstructured sort of TBR. I am participating in Winterween, which is hosted by Olivia from Olivia Reads a Latte and Gabby from Gabby Reads. I'll have their channels linked down below. So I do have some books that I'm specifically planning to read for that readathon, and that's January 3rd through the 9th. I also have a couple titles that I want to get to in the month of January. Definitely more of a mood reader, as well as I am not really doing any sort of year-round reading goals this year. The last couple of years, I noticed myself gradually setting less and less reading goals. So last year, I only had reading goals of, I think it was originally read 120 books, and I changed it to read 100 books. I wanted to read 12 Stephen King books and 12 nonfiction books. The nonfiction I completely surpassed. I have been reading so much nonfiction lately that I don't really feel like it's something I need to set a goal this year, because it is a genre that I am actually picking up on my own without a reading goal, so I don't need that one. As well as Stephen King is one of my favorite authors still. I just notice I tend to enjoy going through his backlog. I don't have as much of it as I used to, so I'm pacing myself through them, as well as a lot of the ones that I have left are very chunky books. So I'm not setting any sort of goals on any sort of authors like that this year either. I'm just setting a goal of reading 100 books. So my reading goal this year, my main one, is read 100 books. I have some books that I'd like to get to in January. I'm going to be talking about my Winterween reads first, because those are the ones, the readathon is at the very beginning of the month. So those books are the ones that I am going to be reading first. There are 5 prompts in total for this readathon, and I've pretty much picked books that can go for really any of the challenges, with the exception of read a book with snow on the cover. That is one that I'm finding very difficult to find a book for. So if you have a recommendation, definitely leave it down below. Preferably I'd like to read something a little bit spooky, because it's for the Winter Readathon, but really just any book with snow on the cover at this point. But the books that I do want to get to, want to read for this readathon, I try to all pick ones that are very short, very speculative horror fantasy fiction. The first one is going to be Monstrous Volume 6. I actually think I read Volume 5 for this readathon last year, so that'll be fun to continue the series. This is, if not my favorite, one of my favorite graphic novel series. It's steampunk, high fantasy, horror-inspired sort of cosmic military fantasy almost. There's a war going on between humans and half-humans, half-arcane, which are like magical beings, and there are monsters and sort of like alien creatures as well. It is a wild ride, and definitely at Volume 6 a lot has happened, a lot's going on, a lot to catch you up on. But if you like found family, if again you like any sort of dark horror fantasy with steampunk elements, with a lot of fantastical elements, with likable yet very unlikable characters at the same time, that are very morally gray, with a found family, highly recommend Monstrous. This is Volume 6. I have loved every single volume thus far, so I'm very excited to pick this up. This next one is also kind of horrific, but in a completely different genre. This one is a speculative fiction horror classic that's going to be The Stepford Wives by Ira Levin. This one, this is like something I feel like that gets referenced a lot in other TV, books, media, all of that. I feel like it gets referenced a lot. I really love Rosemary's Baby by Ira Levin. I'm very intrigued to read this one. I know it has some very interesting social commentary for the time. Interested to see how / if it holds up. This came out in 72. And Rosemary's Baby came out in 1967, and while it is a little bit dated, I still think that holds up as a very effective horror novel. So I'm very intrigued to read this one and kind of see if this holds up as well. I believe it is about an idyllic suburb where something is very off with all of these seemingly perfect wives. Very intrigued to find out more about this premise. And then I also have one that again, very excited to read read. I wanted to pick this one up. I got it for Christmas. I wanted to pick it up and read it Christmas Day, but I knew it would be absolutely perfect for this readathon. That's going to be La Petite Morte by Olivia Blake, and this one is about vampires in New Orleans. That's honestly all I need to know about this one. This is by the author of The Atlas Six, which was one of my favorite books of 2021, so I'm very intrigued to pick up something else by the author. This has illustrations in it. It's about vampires. The tagline is "A little death goes a long way," so I'm very excited to pick this one up. All of the books for this readathon that I have on my TBR so far are all very short. They're horrific, so they can go for a lot of the challenges. I am primarily just missing the one that has snow on the cover. So again, if anyone has any recommendations for a book that would fit that would be excellent, because that's really the only challenge for Winterween that I'm just gonna see what happens when I get to the week of the readathon to try and find a book that fits that prompt, but very excited for these. Now moving on to some books that I just want to get to. The only thing that I'm really bringing from 2021 to 2022, Vita Nostra. This one is an audiobook that I got on Libro FM, and I really barely only started it the 31st, and I'm very intrigued. This is a very strange dark academia book. That's all I really know about it. People say that this one is very weird. Go in expecting it to be more like Catherine House or like a very bizarre dark academia rather than like a more straightforward one like The Secret History. So I'm intrigued to see if it has like some magical elements in there, or if it's just like a bizarre ride. But I did listen to a very small portion of this one in 2021. It's my current read at the moment. I'm very excited to finish it. I have good feelings about it. I'm really enjoying the audiobook production of that so far. And then two books that I want to get to in January as well. This is kind of stacking up to be a lot of books, I know, but this first one is one that I wanted to get to last year. I just didn't get around to it. So many books, so little time. This is going to be The Bone Shard Emperor by Andrea Stewart. This is the sequel to The Bone Shard Daughter, one of my favorite books of last year, and I just never got around to the sequel. It's a very chunky fantasy. It is the second book in a series, and I am very intrigued to get to it. I really fell in love with the first book in this series. I'm really excited based on things we find out at the end of the first book, how the second book is going to look like. I've really been enjoying, I've noticed in a lot of series, the second book has been my favorite recently, which is crazy. It definitely didn't used to be the case, so I'm very intrigued to pick up the second book in a series that I really loved last year, hoping to start 2022 off on a really good note with some really good books. And then the last book is actually the first book in a series that I want to reread, because the next book comes out in February, and that is going to be House of Earth and Blood by Sarah J. Maas. Now, upon first glance, this one and The Bone Shard Emperor seem to be pretty much the same. However, The Bone Shard Emperor is about 500 pages, and this one has those Bible thin pages, so it's about 800. So I am wanting to pick up the second book. Sarah J. Maas is one of those very big authors where I just feel like if I don't pick up the second book right when it comes out, I'll probably get spoiled for it or just find out too much about the plot than I would want before I actually pick it up myself. So I would like to at least start this one. I read this right when it came out, right at the start of 2020, so it's been a while. This is a very huge book with a lot of world building. Honestly, from what I can remember, most of the main action wrapped up in this first book, but definitely left things open for a very different plot moving forward throughout the rest of the series, which I feel like is very typical for Sarah J. Maas books. I feel like the first books in her series always have a small plot that gets wrapped up, but then opens up the entire world to a bigger plot that spans the rest of the series. So I'm intrigued to see what this next book has to offer. I'm also intrigued to reread this one because when I read this book, I had not read a single other thing by Sarah J. Maas. Now, upon reread, I will have read everything else that she has written. So I've read Throne of Glass, I've read the ACOTAR series. I've got to say, this has been my favorite of hers so far, so I'm intrigued to see if that maybe changes upon a reread, or like what other things that I notice upon a reread. This book really brought back my love of reading and love of just like absolute pleasure reading in a big way in 2020, so I'm really excited to dive back into it and get ready for the next book in the series. But that is going to be all of the books that I'm planning to get to in January of 2022. Definitely let me know in the comments down below if you're planning on participating in Winterween, and if so, what are your TBRs, or what is your TBR for January? I'd love to hear about those as well. If you liked this video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up, leave a comment down below, subscribe for more content from me. Stay safe, stay spooky, and I'll see y'all in the next video. Bye!